Hello, I'm R.A. Spratt, and I want to welcome people joining us this week on the Yoto podcast platform. Now, just so you know, most of the bedtime stories I tell here are standalone stories. But over the last year, we have been dipping in and out of the epic story of Odysseus, the hero from ancient Greek mythology. And this week, I'm going to be telling the second last installment of that tale. So if you can jump in right here, that'll be fine. I'm sure you'll pick it all up. But if you did want to go back to the beginning and start from the first episode, you can search back through the episodes. The first episode's called Odysseus, as told by Nanny Piggins, and it dropped on January 8th, 2025. Or you can go back and listen to any of the other episodes. You're going to find fairy tales, myths, legends, and mysteries. I hope you enjoy them all. Now let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Bedtime Stories with me, R.A. Spratt. All right, well, I better start with an apology. This episode is going to download about 18 hours late. It was supposed to drop at 6 a.m. this morning, and now it is 6:51 p.m. this afternoon, and I haven't recorded it, and I've got to edit it, so hopefully it'll be all done by 10 or 11 o'clock tonight, and I'll be able to drop it. It has been another crazy week. I've been up to Sydney twice. It was actually really fun. We had a big meeting at Penguin on... was it Monday or Tuesday? On Monday. And they had like 15 of the children's authors all come in and they told us all, showed us all stats about how Penguin's going. Penguin is my publisher. And that was really fun. And the main reason, I suppose, it's just really fun when we get all the children's authors together because we get on really well and it was nice. We all went out to dinner and we just caught up on all the gossip. So that's what I did on Monday. And then on Tuesday, I went to the dentist. Again, I drove up to Sydney and my parents, who are in their 80s, they've just downsized. So they've moved out of their house of how long have they been there? 42 years, 43 years. And they've just moved into a flat in the same suburb. That flat is apartment if you're in America. And so they wanted us to go visit. So that's what I did. So sometimes you have to put real life first, which is disappointing, I know, if you were waiting for the podcast to download. But yeah. My parents are pretty awesome, so sometimes you need to take care of them and put them first. So that's what we did, and that's why this podcast is late. All right, so let's get into it. My publisher, I showed them the scripts of all the Odysseus. Oh, there's a siren going past. I hope everyone's all right. I don't know what sort of siren is that? It sounds like an ambulance. I hope someone's all right. Hopefully someone's just slipped over and has a little bump. Anyway, all the stories I've been doing all year about Odysseus, they're all coming together to make the whole story of the Odyssey. I showed them to my publisher at Penguin, and they got super excited because the movie of the Odyssey is coming out in June or July next year. And they're like, why don't we take all these scripts that you've used and make them into a whole book? And we can bring it out at the same time as the movie. So when the big Hollywood Chris Nolan movie with Ralph Fiennes and Matt Damon comes out, they'll put out my version as well in as a paperback. So my version, of course, being the Odyssey as told by Nanny Piggins. So that's kind of exciting. So I got a publishing deal for that this week. So I've got to finish it. So I think there's going to be 3 more stories to go. So we're going to do the next installment today. So let's get into that. Here we go. How Odysseus escaped Calypso, as told by Nanny Piggins. The next day, Derek, Samantha and Michael ran home from the bus stop after school, desperate to hear the next instalment of the Odyssey. Well, Nanny Piggins' version of it anyway, and more importantly, to find out what snacks Nanny Piggins would provide for them to nibble on while they listened. And they were not disappointed. When they burst into the house, they were greeted by the smell of chocolate cake, the greatest of all cake types, and the variety of cake at which Nanny Piggins was a world-leading master, so they knew their nanny was in a good mood. "Where did we leave off?" asked Nanny Piggins as they tucked into their first few slices. "Well, Zeus destroyed Odysseus' ship with a thunderbolt," said Derek. "And Poseidon sent a terrible storm," added Michael. "So Odysseus was shipwrecked and she washed ashore on the island of Calypso," said Samantha. "Oh, yes," said Nanny Piggins. "She was really having a bad day. Battling wind and weather and hanging from a tree by your fingertips is hard work. So as soon as she crawled up on the beach of the island, she fell asleep face first on the sand. Even Greek heroes have to take a nap sometimes. Odysseus slept for a whole day and a whole night, and when she woke up, she was surprised to find herself in a cave. "Oh no," said Boris, "not another cave. Bad things happen in caves in Greek mythology. The Cyclops lived in a cave, and he ate people. And Medusa lived in a cave, and she had all sorts of anger management issues and hair issues. Yes, normally I would advise to be wary of venturing into a cave in the ancient Greek mythology days," agreed Nanny Piggins. "But this cave wasn't like that. This cave was lovely. It had a beautiful stream that ran through the middle. There were tapestries on the walls and rugs all over the floors to make it very comfortable. For this cave belonged to the sea nymph Calypso." "Did she frolic and dance?" asked Samantha. "I don't know," said Nanny Piggins. "Probably. That is how nymphs like to pass their time. But this nymph wasn't a she. Calypso was a he, a man." "Really?" said Derek. "I know that hack Homer may have said otherwise when he wrote down his version of this story 2,800 years ago," said Nanny Piggins, "but he was a writer, and therefore never left the house. And he liked making things up. All writers do. They call it fiction, children, but I struggle to see the difference between fiction and outrageous falsehoods. Whereas Odysseus, full name Odysseus Piggins, was a distant cousin of mine, and I think she would know whose cave she woke up in." The children nodded as though this was perfectly reasonable, because they weren't particularly interested in reality, they just wanted to hear the rest of the story. So Odysseus woke up and looked around, and the sea nymph Calypso was sitting at the foot of her bed, which was a bit of a shock, but he was incredibly handsome, and as you know, people are prepared to be more forgiving of good-looking people, especially if they've been kind enough to drag you inside from a storm on a beach and put you in a nice, warm, dry bed. "Hello," said Odysseus, cautiously, just in case this was another cannibal who was just waiting for her to wake up so he could eat her. "Hello," said the man. "My name is Calypso. I am a sea nymph and a god." "Really?" said Odysseus. "I suppose that explains how unnaturally good-looking you are." "And I am deeply in love with you," said Calypso. "What?" demanded Odysseus. "I fell in love with you at first sight," declared Calypso. "What, when you found me face down on the beach, drenched in seawater and exhausted from surviving several near-death experiences in succession?" "Well, the back of your head is very attractive," said Calypso, "and wet hair suits you." "You don't get many visitors to this island, do you?" guessed Odysseus. "No," agreed Calypso, "and it's all because I helped my father, Atlas." "You mean the one who holds up the sky?" asked Odysseus. "That's the one. Have you met him?" asked Calypso. "No, but I've seen the sky, and I'm very grateful he doesn't let it fall on our heads," said Odysseus. "Anyway, because I helped him in the war with the Titans, I was cursed by Zeus to live here in this beautiful paradise for all eternity, with no one for company except for dozens of nymph servants and trees and plants that do my every bidding." "Well, I guess there are worse places to be trapped," said Odysseus. "And also, part of the curse is, I have to fall in love with anyone who gets shipwrecked here," added Calypso. "And you're the first person to be shipwrecked, so I'm very excited to meet you. When shall we get married?" "I can't marry you. I'm already married to my dear husband Penelope." "But that's a girl's name," said Calypso. "No, it's not," said Odysseus. "He's my husband. I love him, and I will not betray my wedding vows. I must get home to my three-isled kingdom of Ithaca." "But you can't," said Calypso. "You have no ship." "Can't you lend me one of yours?" asked Odysseus. "I don't have a ship either," said Calypso. "I don't need one. I'm not allowed to leave." "Then lend me tools and I'll build one," said Odysseus. "Oh, no," said Calypso. "I can't do that because you'd need timber, and all the trees are my friends. I couldn't let you cut one down. It would hurt the trees' feelings." "So you would keep me trapped here?" asked Odysseus. "I'm not trapping you here," said Calypso. "Geography has trapped us both here. It's not my fault this island is on the edge of the world and no ships ever pass by, and you've got absolutely no way of leaving." "Oh, no, what am I going to do?" wailed Odysseus. "I fought in the Trojan Wars for 9 years, and I've been journeying home for another 7 years. Will I never see my homeland again?" "Oh, gosh, that is very sad," agreed Calypso. "I know what might cheer you up. How about a nice slice of chocolate cake?" "I couldn't eat anything. I'm too distressed," said Odysseus. "Oh, dear," said Calypso, bustling back with the plate. "Then I'll just set this large slice of cake here on the bedside table, in case you change your mind." Calypso set the plate down, and Odysseus saw the chocolate cake for the first time, and it was as if she'd been struck by a blow from one of Zeus's thunderbolts. for she fell in love with that cake just as Calypso had fallen in love with her. She didn't even make a conscious decision to eat it. Her body just took over. The cake was in her hand, then in her mouth, then in her stomach, faster than she could say, "Could I please have another slice?" Which she did say very quickly, let me assure you. And so Odysseus and Calypso continued on in this way. Odysseus would spend all day, every day, sitting on a rock on the furthest point of the island, staring out to sea in the direction of her homeland Ithaca, weeping with homesickness. Then she would spend all night eating Calypso's delicious cake, which they did day after day, night after night, for 7 years. 7 years! Exclaimed Samantha. That is a long time. No one ever did anything by half measures in Greek mythology, said Nanny Piggins. Luckily, after 7 years, the goddess Athena started to feel sorry for Odysseus. It took 7 years for a start to feel sorry? Asked Derek. Well, she was a goddess, said Nanny Piggins, and goddesses have a lot of interfering to do. Don't forget their own lives are as melodramatic as a daytime soap opera, so it's easy for them to lose track of all the people they're punishing, especially if they are on a distant island in a cave. But anyway, Athena remembered Odysseus, and when she went to check up on him, she saw him crying on a rock, and she knew this would not do. After everything Odysseus had been through in the Trojan War and his epic journey, it would be a terrible end to the story for him to stay there on a rock weeping and eating cake. "I don't know. I think that sounds rather nice, actually," said Boris, who was personally a great believer in both a good cathartic cry and eating a nice slice of cake, preferably honey cake with extra honey. "Yes, I know," agreed Nanny Piggins, but Odysseus was a pig of action, and fate had more things in store for her before her days of just eating cake could begin. So Athena asked her father, Zeus, to release Odysseus from captivity, and he begrudgingly agreed. He sent Hermes, the messenger, not the handbag, to speak to Calypso about it. When Hermes turned up, Calypso was immediately suspicious. He lived on an island on the edge of the world, so the gods didn't ever just drop by for a cup of tea. Hermes got straight down to it. "Okay, Calypso, Zeus wants you to let Odysseus go," said Hermes. "But I'm not keeping her here," patted Calypso. "Yeah, you're not helping her get home either," Hermes pointed out. "It's for her own good," said Calypso. "If she stays here with me, I've offered to make her be immortal, so she can be eternally beautiful and eat delicious cake forever." "Wow," said Hermes, "and she said no to that?" "Yes, she really is a very silly hero," said Calypso. "She keeps going on about her love for her husband and wanting to get back to her kingdom of Ithaca." "Yes, well, it is time for them to be reunited," said Hermes. "Zeus has ordered it that you must give Odysseus everything she needs to build a boat so she can sail to the island of the Phaeacians and they can help her." "But I don't have any boat-building supplies," protested Calypso. "Oh, please, you have a forest," said Hermes. "But the trees are my friends," said Calypso. "Are they really?" asked Hermes. "Do you send them Christmas cards?" "Christmas hasn't been invented yet," said Calypso. "You know what I mean," said Hermes. "Are you just using the whole 'trees are my friends' line to hold Odysseus here because you're desperately in love?" "So what if I am? It's not fair," said Calypso. "Zeus gets to fall in love with mortals all the time. I fall in love with one mortal and hold her captive for just 7 years, and you say I have to stop. It's a double standard." "Yes, it is," agreed Hermes. "But Zeus is big on hypocrisy, and since he is king of the gods, we all have to put up with it, or he'll blast you with a thunderbolt." "Ugh! All right," said Calypso. "I'll do it. But I'm not letting Odysseus cut down any trees. Trees are important to the environment. They produce oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide, and they're nice to take in naps under on sunny days." "But she needs timber to build a ship," argued Hermes. "Well, Odysseus can leave if she can build herself a ship out of the one thing I do have in great abundance," declared Calypso. "Chocolate cake." "But chocolate cake isn't buoyant," argued Hermes. "That's not my problem," said Calypso. "I will bake 10,000 cakes. If she can't turn them into a boat, that's her problem." But Odysseus was up to the challenge. She arranged the cakes into a boat shape, then tied them together with licorice straps, and then made the whole thing waterproof with hundreds of litres of royal icing, the strongest substance known to man, as anyone who's ever tried to eat a gingerbread house and instead broke one of their own teeth can testify. Calypso offered to stock the boat with food, but Odysseus said she didn't need to because she'd just nibble on bits of the boat throughout the voyage. And so, after just 4 days of baking and ship construction, Odysseus was able to launch a ship, and miraculously, it did not sink. most likely because Athena used some of her godly powers to ensure the waterproofing on the hull actually worked and the tensile strength of the licorice straps held strong, which meant Odysseus could set sail. This made Calypso cry a lot, but he had to let his beloved go. And things went well at first. Athena sent a favourable wind to flatten the water ahead of Odysseus' boat, and she made good progress across the sea for 10 whole days. That was until Poseidon came back from his holiday. What? Poseidon was away on holiday? Asked Derek. I didn't know gods could take holidays, said Michael. Of course they can. Yes, he'd taken a quick trip to Ethiopia to visit friends, said Nanny Piggins, which is the only reason that Odysseus was able to get off the island. There's no way if Poseidon had been at home on Mount Olympus, he would have stood by while Zeus let Odysseus go. As soon as Poseidon saw that Odysseus had almost made it to the protection of the Phaeacians, Poseidon was outraged. He had to put a stop to it. Poseidon called up his biggest storm ever. The ship was tossed and smashed by the waves and buffeted by the wind, and eventually the boat that was made out of cake was smashed into crumbs. What a waste of cake, wept Boris. Indeed, said Nanny Piggins, although it didn't go to waste. It was a lovely treat for some passing mermaids. Now Odysseus was adrift, swimming alone in the storm-tossed sea. And freestyle had not been invented yet, so don't picture anything too athletic. She would have been swimming breaststroke or dog paddle at best. Odysseus was still so far out that she couldn't see land in any direction. All she could do was keep swimming and hoping she was going in the right direction. But the waves and the currents were pulling at her, and she was growing more and more exhausted. Luckily, at this moment, a passing mermaid spotted her, and, feeling a bit guilty about having just eaten a big chunk of Odysseus' ship, she decided to help. So she lent Odysseus a magical sash. Why would Odysseus want a sash if she was drowning in the middle of the ocean? Asked Derek. Because this was a magical sash. Anyone who strapped the sash around their waist would instantly be able to swim freestyle. Now that she could do that, Odysseus made much better progress, and after just 2 more days of swimming, she spotted the island of the Phaeacians. Unfortunately, the islands were surrounded by reefs on all sides, so the only way she could get to land was to swim up the river. Luckily, the magical sash was also able to halt the tide while she did this, or it would have been very hard work. Eventually, Odysseus made it up the river to the riverbank and collapsed exhausted, face down in the mud. The end. Time for bed. What? You can't end it there. The story started with her face down in the mud. No, said Nanny Piggins. It started with her face down in the sand on a beach. Do pay attention. No, the next bit is really good, so we'll have to save it for another day so we can do it justice properly. Oh, said the children. Don't worry. I've got another chocolate cake in the oven. That'll help overcome the trauma of ending on a cliffhanger. So they all rushed to the kitchen and had another slice. The end. Okay, so we're going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed that story. And we will be doing Odysseus for the next couple of weeks so I can finish the book and we can get it published in time for the big Hollywood movie with actual real non-pig actors that's going to come out in June next year, which will probably be quite violent, so probably kids won't be able to see that one. So you'll get to enjoy this book instead. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story, and until next time, goodbye. Hello, it's me again. If you enjoyed listening to Bedtime Stories with R.A. Spratt, it would be really helpful if you could like, subscribe, follow, and or review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to now. Every little one of those digital affirmations helps, and the bigger this podcast gets, the more I can justify procrastinating from my real job to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you.